Okay, it's now time for my main interview of the show, and that is with Professor Saad, one of the greats. And he is a visiting scholar at the Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom, University of Mississippi. And it gives me great pleasure to have him on. Enjoy. Doctor, always wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for joining us here.
It is wonderful to be with you. Congratulations on your continued success. Very good.
Oh, bless. Coming from you, that means the world. Thank you so much. I want to talk to you, first of all, about Charlie Kirk. People are still shocked, devastated. A lot of people are celebrating it. It's been unbelievable, the reaction. What do you make of the way people have not only felt, because that's one thing, but been okay to express?
Right. So to start with the people who are grieving, it's unbelievable the number of emails that I've received from total strangers. I received an email today from a person in Malawi, in Africa, who was very moved by what happened to Charlie. And so, of course, a lot of people, even if they didn't know him, understood that he was a positive light. He was a positive force. And so they grieve as though they're the brother, the son, the boyfriend that they wish that they had. And so, and of course, given that he was a personal friend, it was, I mean, I couldn't tell you, I was floating on a dark cloud of rage. I continue to be whenever I see his image now. I mean, we recently had a chat together. It's just, it's difficult to process. Of course, on the other hand, the people who are celebrating him, celebrating his death, it really makes you wonder who raised these people. Listen, I have a lot of people who send me a lot of hateful stuff who are really, truly degenerate people, but I just don't have the reflex to ever think about ill will happening to them or celebrating and dancing on their grave. So I guess we must be made up of different material.
I often look at those people and I look at who they cheer for, and I take their hate as a badge of honor in many circumstances, because they're not the kind of people I would want to be fans. Doctor, there's a lot of talk about who fills that void left by Charlie, and what he did was so incredibly unique in that he was willing to be vulnerable. He was willing to be engaged publicly and debated and challenged. Not a lot of people are. You're one of those people who are. Who do you think can slide into that spot, if anyone?
He's really irreplaceable in the sense that he had a combination of skills. Many people have one, two, three of those skills, but not all of them. So he was very approachable. He was very humble. He was willing, as you said, to put himself out there. He was willing to be punchy, but always with a very warm smile, something that is difficult to pull off, because oftentimes when you're punchy, you come across as moralizing or caustic, and you didn't get that with Charlie. He was able to connect with the TikTok generation. I've told the story before, but it's worth repeating on your show. When my daughter found out, she's 16 years old, when she found out that I was going to speak to him just earlier this summer, she said, "Daddy, do you think that you could introduce me to him?" Now, I speak to a lot of very famous and very illustrious people. She never
Yes, you
asked
do.
to meet them, but she did ask when it was Charlie Kirk, right? So if I were to speak to 16-year-olds, they might view me as the guy with the gray hair who's a professor. Maybe they might think that they can't connect with me. But Charlie was only a bit older than them, and so he really had that unique touch. I'm sure there is somebody out there, but I'm not sure it's going to be easy to replace him.
What do you make of Candace Owens? And I hate giving her airtime, but it's dominating so much on X, particularly at the moment. Her theory and her attempts to convince people that somehow Israel or the Jews were involved in this. I mean, what is your reaction? I'm not going to put words in your mouth. What do you feel when you see that?
Well, the first thing is, I spoke to Candace on my show many years ago when she was a much lesser figure. And frankly, I regret that. I almost feel existentially soiled in the fact that I shared, even though it was remotely, that I shared the platform with her, even if it were only for an hour, because what she is exhibiting is exactly what happens when someone is parasitized by what I call, this is a game that I coined called 6 Degrees of Jew. It's a play on 6 Degrees of Separation or 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. And so the way the game works, Aaron, is that I give you a calamity and you have to point it back to the Jews in 6 or fewer causal steps. And so, for example, if I were to say an Amazonian frog just died, how can we blame the Jews? Go. And I often will post this facetiously on X, and people do come up, even though they're just playing along, they will very quickly come up with 6 or fewer steps to blame the Jews. Well, it seems that much of Candace's brain has been taken up by 6 degrees of Jew.
It's insanity, isn't it? And even today, you know, we've just seen the text messages released of the alleged assassin had sent to his transgender partner, essentially outlining what occurred, what his reasoning was that he did it. Yet that's still not enough. The other thing that I find really interesting, and I don't know if you know Bill Ackman, I know Bill Ackman, I consider him a friend. I look at even what she is accusing him of. Charlie, and he has denied it, and there's no doubt in my mind that he is telling the truth. But Charlie wanted robust debate. People would go to Charlie. This is what he did for a living, and argue their case if they believed vehemently in Israel or in particular elements of the war in Gaza or in a decision made by the government. That's what Charlie did. Like the thought of people going to him and strongly putting their position to him should not surprise anyone. I wouldn't have thought, nor would it have offended him.
Indeed. Look, this whole reflex comes in part from the idea that there are certain things that you say or positions that you hold that are so offensive that it amounts to a form of violence, right? That's what the left has promulgated for a while now. Now, if I were to link it back, if I can be professorial for a second, it really comes, if we can trace it back to a specific idea pathogen known as deconstructionism. Deconstructionism is a movement that was, I mean, the real pioneer of it was a French philosopher by the name of Jacques Derrida, where he basically argued that language creates reality. And so if you put that, there is no reality that exists outside of the things that you name that thing, right? And so once you actually internalize that framework, then you could potentially argue that saying something that I disagree with becomes a form of violence against me. Of course, that's silly. Of course, that we should be able to, in a civil society, to have debates. And I constantly try to remind people about the difference between deontological and consequentialist ethics, if I could take a moment to explain it.
Can you explain that? I'd love you to, please.
Thank you. So deontological ethics are absolute statements. So for example, if I say it is never okay to lie, that would be a deontological statement. If I say it is okay to lie to spare someone's feelings, then that would be a consequentialist statement. Now, for many things in life, it makes perfect sense for us to be consequentialist. So I always joke, although I'm being serious, if you want to have a happy marriage and you hear the following question, do I look fat in those? Then please quickly put on your consequentialist hat. And if you have to lie, then so be it, because you're doing it for an important cause, which is to spare the feelings of somebody that you love. So that's okay. That's a white lie. But when it comes to foundational principles like freedom of speech, like freedom of inquiry, like presumption of innocence, those by definition cannot be consequentialist. So when you say, yes, I believe in freedom of speech, and then you put the qualifier, but you're sinking into consequentialism, you shouldn't.
Yeah. That is so fascinating. Thank you so much for explaining that. I want to get your take on this two sides argument that particularly the Democrats and the left are pushing at the moment about this violence on both sides. It looks very one-sided to me. Do you think that this is an issue that both sides contend with equally?
I mean, I don't have the empirical data, but certainly from having ears and eyes and a brain, I would think that it is much more likely to be on the left, because they're the ones who have internalized that consequentialist ethos, right? They're the ones who burned down entire, neighborhoods after His Holiness Saint George Floyd was killed. He wasn't a particularly lovely guy. He was a hardened
No.
felon, but him getting killed became completely justifiable for us to burn down the world. On the other hand, how many protests, violent protests, have we seen when a genuinely beautiful gem of a human being got blown away? Charlie Kirk, nobody did it. So I don't believe that it is equally likely on both sides. Now, by the way, the fact that you could identify a singular exemplar on the other side, doesn't it make it equally likely? And again, this is
Correct.
something actually that I talk about in Suicidal Empathy, my forthcoming book. Uh,
Yes.
Men are taller and heavier than women, even though your Aunt Linda is taller than your Uncle Roscoe. When you tell me that, but Professor, it's not true because Aunt Linda, you're
Yeah.
simply advertising that you're a moron who doesn't understand statistical distribution. Nearly every single female player in the WNBA is taller than most men, but the statement holds absolutely true that men are taller than women. So this is exactly what they're doing when they are equivocating. You find a singular
Yes.
exemplar where it is somebody on the right who killed, and then you say, you see, it's equal on both sides. We both do it.
Yeah. And it's not true. Absolutely. So brilliantly put. Talk to me about moving forward in this space. Is there a chance of unity when you have people who are so deluded, so evil, so batshit crazy? How does unity occur, particularly in a country like the United States, post what's occurred?
Well, look, I wouldn't be able to get up in the morning with and and rub my hands with optimism if I thought that there was no chance to reach people. Now, in any distribution, there is a certain number of people that you're not going to be able to reach, right? So if I want to dialogue with you and you either threaten me to death or you go la la la, I don't want to hear it, then there is absolutely no opportunity for us to have a meaningful dialogue. But if you grant me the courtesy to at least engage you and at least present you the evidence, I'm of the opinion that I could flip you. And so I'll give you a very
Yeah.
quick example. About 14 years ago, almost 15 years ago now, and I mentioned this actually in The Parasitic Mind, a Jewish friend of mine wrote to me and said, I'm currently friends with a doctoral student who's doing Islamic studies. And she's telling me that there's absolutely zero violence in Islam. Islam loves the Jews. Well, you're a big expert on this, Professor Saad. Can you tell us what you think? Can you tell me what you think? And so I sent her a link with just a montage of imams across the world and what they say about the Jews. I didn't editorialize. She writes
No.
back to me and says, well, you sharing this clip proves to me that you are no different in your extremism. So my sharing that meant that I was as extremist. Now, but I'm going to come to a point that's relevant to your question. It took her 15 years, and she finally emailed me and said, hi, Gad, it's been a long time since we've last chatted. I just want to tell you that I feel so ashamed of how I had reacted to you back then. And I now completely see, how you were exactly correct. So it took a while for reality
Yes.
to bite her in the ass, but eventually it did.
That is real. That's hanging in there for someone to finally come round, isn't it? That is patience. Who do you think at the moment, who poses the greatest threat to the West and to all the things that we value, and that's peace, democracy, freedom? Is it Qatar and the Islamic extremists and terrorist proxies? Is it these nutcase influencers who are suddenly almost giving more validity and legitimacy to them by doing their dirty work? Who at the moment poses the greatest threat to all the things that we hold dear?
Right. So the equation for the catastrophe that the West is heading towards, and it's not because I'm trying to plug my work, it's the
No.
parasitic mind plus suicidal empathy.
Yep.
So yes, Islam has many tenets that are incongruent with Western values, but it only becomes a problem when we are parasitized by cultural relativism that says, hey, who are we to judge the norms of another culture, number one? And then we say, and so here's a way that we could demonstrate that we're not bigoted. You know what's a great idea is to let in millions of people who
Yeah.
don't share any of our values, because then we could look at ourselves in the mirror and really feel proud in our moral piety, right? And
Yep.
so the combination of having a parasitized mind and a parasitized emotional system results in the hijacking of your survival instinct, and then it results in the death of the West. You're seeing it in your country of Australia, you're seeing
Yeah.
it in Sweden and in Britain and in France. So yes, there might be ideologies outside of us that are very dangerous, but what makes it dangerous is we say, hey,
Yes.
bring it in and let's show you that we can be killed honorably while not being racist.
Insanity. Tommy Robinson, I know, is a friend of yours as well. And what he did over the past weekend in terms of a show of force, people fighting back, does that fill you with hope? Does it give you confidence that people are cottoning on to their own suicidal empathy and the fact that it will destroy them and their children?
It does. And actually, one of the things that I think I will learn to deeply regret is the fact that I wasn't able to make it to speak at that event.
I nearly got there too. I booked accommodation. I sent him the screenshot. I was so close and then I couldn't.
Exactly. Well, then we could have finally met in person. Too bad. Next time. Look, it
Next
gives
time.
me some optimism. Of course it does. But that reflex of moral indignation has to happen in every nook and cranny of
Yes.
every interaction, right? So when I'm sitting with someone at the pub and they say something that I think is challengeable, well, I won't keep my mouth shut because I want to be nice, and be friendly. I will engage them politely. So, yes, it's great to dedicate September 13th as the day of the Brits are coming back, but that's insufficient. Every single interaction where these dreadful parasitic ideas are spreading is where we need to have an inoculation center.
What grade would you give Donald Trump thus far for his presidency, his second term?
And of course, I am the professor of the people, so it is incumbent on me to give the grades. I will give him an A. Maybe not quite A plus, but somewhere between A and A plus.
And why?
Because on all the things that matter, he's done very well, right? Which is he's trying to crack down on crime. People have a right to walk around not feeling that they're going to be mugged and raped and shot. So he is trying his best. He can't, wave the magic wand and all crime is going to go, but he certainly is demonstrating the desire to do so. He has shut down the border. That's a good thing. There is no country if there is no integrity of the border. He is engaging all sorts of partners in foreign diplomacy. So on all fronts, I think he's doing a great job. And I even feel, if I may say, Aaron, I feel as though he's grown into his role
Yeah.
in the second term. And I think I want to offer a completely speculative theory, but I think it stands on good merit. The first term, he was pissed off. People are coming after me. Nobody is giving me credit and so on. Well, now he's ascended to the mountain. Now he has won all that he has to win. Now he has lifted the World Cup. And so that stress is off his shoulder. And so I feel that even on the metric, which he scored poorly in the first term, which is he wasn't presidential enough, I actually think he's been very presidential this time around. So I think I might change it from A to A plus.
Well, I love that, ever evolving. What do you think of his successor? Is it JD Vance? Is it Marco Rubio? I mean, there's obviously time for both of them to grow and show what they can do, but who do you feel now would be the best candidate for the Republicans to take over from him?
I feel JD Vance. I think Rubio's also great. I mean, when you hear him speak, he's spot on. I think he's doing a great job as Secretary of State. So I think
Yeah.
sort of the MAGA agenda is safe with both of them. But I think there's that extra little something that JD has. He's a bit punchy, kind of not unlike how we were talking about Charlie
Charlie.
Kirk earlier, right? He could be punchy. He's a honey badger, but he's pleasant to look at. He's got a nice smile. He's good looking. Not to imply that Rubio's not, but he's got the right mixture of stuff that, frankly, he
Yeah.
looks presidential. Boy, he's very young. So if I had to put my chips, please don't be upset at me, Secretary Rubio. I would say slightly more edge towards JD Vance.
And just finally on world leaders who are not so impressive, in fact, the complete opposite. We see Donald Trump and Melania are in the UK at the moment. You've got Starmer, Carney in Canada, Macron. Could you pick out potentially the weakest world leader that you think is currently in a position of power?
Well, I know this is not answering your exact question, but the weakest would have been our former lady prime
Yes,
minister, Justin Trudeau.
I say that
There is,
too.
right. As a matter of fact, if you want to see an incredible clip, an exchange between Megyn Kelly and I, when she had come on my show last and we were chatting, I don't have the exact words, but she said something like, I can't stand Justin Trudeau. This is not a guy who can get on top of you and get the job done in the bedroom. But the only thing I could say is, I love you, Megyn Kelly.
I hope to never find that out ever.
From your lips to God's ear. But I would probably say the British Prime Minister is probably top. But although, Mark Carney does not exactly exude the model of masculinity, but at least he's a globalist kind of banker type, a bit sleazy. He knows how to speak at the Davos encounter. You know what I mean? But I would say probably Starmer is the king of the castrati.
Doctor, before I let you go, if you can just let us know, when is Suicidal Empathy coming? How can people see you, watch you, hear you, absorb you in every way possible that is appropriate?
Right. Well, so on X, you could follow me at GadSad. I have a show called The Sad Truth, SAAD, both on YouTube and on podcast. Suicidal Empathy. I was actually only supposed to submit the original manuscript by March 2026, but I've now sped up the timeline so that I'm about 6 months ahead of schedule. So if all goes well, I'd like to think that maybe by late spring, it will be in your hand on some beach where you're going, God, I love Saad.
I don't need to be on a beach or have your book to think, God, I love Saad, but I'll love you more in that position. Legend, thank you for everything that you do, for the fight that you take up every single day. You're amazing.
Thank you. You too. Cheers. Take care.